So now let us begin the translation method. The translation method, sometimes also known as the classical method, as I told you, is a traditional teaching technique that was used to teach Latin and Greek, and was particularly in vogue, I must say, in the 16th century. The focus at that time was on the translation of texts. Like you know, when English was introduced in India, the focus wasn't on the spoken English. The focus was on understanding, means to understand the language, or to write it, or to be able to read it. That was the focus. So even this method is followed for teaching Latin and Greek. Even the Europeans, they learned Latin and Greek through this method. Why? As I said, the focus was on translation of texts, or say teaching of grammar, and rote learning of vocabulary. Rote learning of vocabulary. Okay, what does it mean? Rote learning of means they learn the rules by heart. If you know the rules, that doesn't mean that you can even speak the language. Well, you can understand it, you can read, or you can even write. But as far as spoken part is concerned, spoken skill is concerned, you cannot acquire simply by learning the rules of grammar, syntax, and all. So there was no emphasis on speaking and listening comprehension, because Latin and Greek were taught more as academic subjects rather than as means of oral communication. Okay, rather than as means of oral communication. Now, you know, in the present century, in the present decade, or say since the past few decades, English is being taught for the oral communication, so that we are able to communicate in English. Now our students are able to communicate in English. So we have advanced there in this area, you may say. You know, I was telling you about Latin and Greek. The same can be said about teaching of Sanskrit and Arabic, or say Persian in India. The learners of these languages know how to read, write, and understand, but speaking fluently in them remains a mere dream for them. Like, you know, as far as students are concerned, they can read Arabic text. Okay, they can even write something there in Arabic, and same can be said about Sanskrit. You know, we taught it there in a curriculum. Since then, since it is there in our curriculum, we learn it. We learn to read, we learn to write. But as far as speaking is concerned, some can, you know, with their diligence, with their devotion, with their dedication, also learn how to speak a little, but they cannot speak fluently. Same can be said about Persian also. Although, you know, there were many poets like Ghalib and all who composed their couplets and ghazals in Persian, but there were very few. How many Ghalibs are there here? Very few. Okay, and you know, since Kalidas and all, they composed epics and works in Sanskrit, because Sanskrit was in vogue. Say in the ancient India, you may say. As far as, you know, Sanskrit is concerned, it was spoken, it was written, it was understood very well, say around 1000 years ago. But now very few understand Sanskrit. The translation method is thus the oldest teaching method of English, I must say, in India. It is as old as the introduction of English in the country. You know, when the English came here, they introduced this method, and when they introduced it, the easiest method that we thought was the translation method, and it was in fact the easiest method, so we took it up. In spite of other methods of teaching English, this method, I must say, is still used in most of the classrooms in India. You know, if you happen to go to rural schools, even now, okay, even today, if you have a round of the schools, then you would find the teachers of English teaching through the translation method. So even now this is followed. Okay, even now it is followed. And suppose if I talk about the principles of the translation method, then I would say the translation method is based on the on certain principles, like translation interprets the words and phrases of the foreign language in the best possible manner. Like, you can have one-to-one equivalent, you may say. So it is based, it interprets the words and phrases of the foreign language in the best possible manner, in the sense that, suppose if you ask me, like how to explain the word method, so I would tell the meaning in Hindi instead of defining the word. Because if I'm defining method, if I'm defining adopt, if I'm defining adapt, that would take time. It would be time consuming. And not only that, students might not understand the meaning exactly. They will not get the one-to-one equivalent. It would be baffling for them. So what is the first principle as far as principle of translation method is concerned? That it interprets the words and phrases of the foreign language in the best possible manner, which is not possible with the direct method or audiolingual method for that matter. The foreign physiology is best assimilated, best absorbed in this process of interpretation. Like, students do not forget the meanings if you tell them the Hindi equivalents to them. Like, you are once told, well, pen means qalam, okay, and this handkerchief means rumal, so they are going to remember it. And so, suppose, if you ask me what is pen, and I am defining, well, it's a cylindrical object and there is ink in it and it is used for writing. Now see what a big description I am giving. Or say, what's handkerchief? Well, it's a square piece of cloth which is used for wiping face and all. So if you're giving these definitions, they are time consuming and they do not understand it. They would forget it. So if I'm just telling them, well, pen means qalam and handkerchief means rumal, then these words will be assimilated in their memory. They won't forget it. So you may say the English physiology is, or the foreign physiology for that matter, is best assimilated, best absorbed in this process of interpretation. Like, there are certain words like nobody says chammach or chamcha because we are told that instead of saying chammach and chamcha, we find a spoon, a easy word. We do not say samachar pat. Instead of samachar pat, we say newspaper. And we don't even say television. What do we say? Television Hindi. Doordarshan. We don't say Doordarshan, or we do not say Doorbhash. Do we? We don't. We don't say even Samay. Right? In place of them, what words do we use? We say television, telephone, time. Or say the answer sheet that you got, when you write your answers there in exam, we call it answer sheet. Okay? And some students, I don't know, they call it copy, which is a very wrong word, in place of notebook. So we say notebook. And I don't even know what is the Hindi version of this. Why? Because these English words, they have been absorbed in our in our minds. They have been very nicely assimilated. I hope you understand this.
Yes, sir.
So this is easy, that way. The translation method is very easy. And even the structures of the foreign language are best learned when compared and contrasted with those of the mother tongue. If I am just teaching my students the structures of English language, they won't understand. But if I compare the structures, okay, with the Hindi version, say I'm talking about Hindi, as I said earlier, that I will be confining myself as far as translation is concerned to Hindi language, because this is the language that is spoken in this part of our country. So we may tell our students that in English language we have S plus V plus O. Okay, this is structure we have S plus V plus O. Whereas in Hindi or say Urdu, what structure do you have? You have S plus O plus V. So you can tell your students, Okay, they can compare and they would know, well, if we are writing in English, we have to follow this structure, whereas in our mother tongue, this structure is followed. I eat a mango. I, subject, eat, verb, mango is object. And मैं आम खाता हूँ. खाता हूँ is verb, आम is object, and मैं is subject. So this is so simple. So like we can tell the structures through students. Based on the students understand the difference in sentence structures of L1 and L2. Okay, again I would like to tell you what is L1. L1 is your mother tongue. Okay, L1 is your mother tongue. I'll be using these words. That's why I want you to remember them. Do not forget them. L2 is this is language 1. Okay, language 1. Which is the language you have learned first?
Mother tongue.
Mother tongue. And which is your mother tongue?
Hindi.
Hindi is your mother tongue. Well, so this is language 1. And which language are you learning as the second language?
English.
English you are learning as the second language. Very good. So this is L2. And since you are learning this language, this is also called as the target language. Okay. What is it called? The target language. And it is also called as the second language. Why? Because this is your second language. And that is why you would find, you know, this acronym, this abbreviation ESL, English as a second language. What does it mean? English as a second language. So English is a second language for us. It's not our mother tongue. So in all those countries where English does not happen to be mother tongue, English is taught as a second language. ESL. Remember this. So what do we see? You know, once you tell your students the structures of the mother tongue and that of the foreign language, that is the target language, then very soon they understand the difference in sentence structure, and they start forming correct sentences in the second language. Start forming correct sentences in the English language. Okay, or say in the target language. If you know there are dissimilarities, now here there is a dissimilarity in the structure, there are similarities too. There are similarities too, and these common features prove very advantageous in picking up the nuances of the second language. You know, all languages have their own nuances. They all have their peculiarities. And if you understand the peculiarities of the language, the nuances of the language, you understand it. It's very important, and it takes time. You can understand the nuances, you can understand the peculiarities only when you say immerse yourself there in language teaching or language learning process. Now I was telling about the similarities. Now, if there are dissimilarities in the structures, there are similarities also. So try to exploit the similarities as teachers of English. You are all going to be teachers of English, so you must try to exploit the similarities that we have in the two languages, the English language and your own mother tongue, the Hindi language. For example, the closeness between English and Hindi idioms. Well, I'll be selecting here those idioms where you have, almost similar translation there in the mother tongue. For example, necessity is the mother of invention. Necessity is the mother of invention. If you're telling this idiom to your student, he might forget it. But if you give him the Hindi version, then he might not. He would retain it there in his memory. Like, what do we say? Avashyakta aviskar ki janni hai. Avashyakta aviskar ki janni hai. This is what we say?
Yes.
Yeah. Like, avashyakta is zarurat. Zarurat जो है वो इजाद की माँ है. Zarurat इजाद की माँ है. This is how we would say in Urdu. Like, prevention is better than cure. Prevention is better than cure. How would you translate? Prevention is better than cure. इलाज से परहेज अच्छा है. इलाज से परहेज अच्छा है. परहेज is prevention. Ilaj is treatment, cure. So prevention is better than cure. So if you have, like the similar equivalent, then it is important that you tell it or you share it with your students so that they do not remember. They do not forget. Okay, so that they remember lifelong. Like practice makes a man perfect. Practice makes a man perfect. A very common proverb, and you also have a Hindi version, and this is said by a Hindi poet. Do you remember? Yes. Well, I am giving you a hint. It has got the word karat. Karat. No, you can't make out. Well, it's escaping me as well. करत करत अभ्यास के जड़मती हो सुजान. करत करत अभ्यास के जड़मती हो सुजान. Now I remember the entire couplet. रसरी आवत जाते शिल्प परत निशान. Now you remember? Okay. Do not forget that whatever you teach, try to retain that, because like if you learn Hindi language, if you learn Sanskrit language or Urdu language, they all support in learning other languages. Say tit for tat. Now this is a very common idiom. Tit for tat. What do you say in Hindi?
जैसे को तैसा.
Very good. जैसे को तैसा. Yeah. So here you could pass on. जैसे को तैसा. Yes, you're right. Or say, where there is a flower, there is a thorn. Where there is a flower, there is a thorn. जहाँ फूल वहाँ कांटा. You can give this translation, जहाँ फूल वहाँ कांटा. Now your student is going to remember, where there is a flower, there is a thorn. A similar is, where there is a will, there is a way. Where there is a will, there is a way. So it seems as though this has been influenced by that idiom, because that one is a very common one. This is not that common. Where there is a flower, there is a thorn. जहाँ फूल वहाँ कांटा. Now I'm reminded of Phool and Kata we are talking about. I am reminded of a couplet. हमने कांटों को भी नरमी से छुआ है अक्सर. हमने कांटों को भी नरमी से छुआ है अक्सर. लोग बेदर्द हैं फूलों को मसल देते हैं. लोग बेदर्द हैं फूलों को मसल देते हैं. So enjoyed the couplet? Okay. And like I'm reminded of a dialogue also which became very popular, as from Dilip Kumar's movie Mughal-e-Azam. कांटों को बुझाने का खौफ नहीं होता ज़िल इलाही या साहिब आलम. कांटों को बुझाने का खौफ नहीं होता साहिब आलम. This was on Phool and Kate. Okay. Now can you give me any other proverb or idiom where you have a similar translation in Hindi, in your mother tongue? Okay. Better alone than in a bad company. Better alone than in a bad company. बुरी संगत से अकेला भला. बुरी संगत से अकेला भला. Okay. I might not be like giving you the exact, but this is very close to, and this is how I have learnt while I studied Hindi, in fact, there in my 9th and 10th standard. So better alone than in a bad company. These English idioms and proverbs, maxims, we still use, and we use even Hindi ones. So I might not be very true with words, but I'm giving you the soul. बुरी संगत से अकेला भला. It's better to be alone than in a bad company. Man is known by the company he keeps. मनुष्य और आदमी और इंसान अपनी संगति से पहचाना जाता है. मनुष्य अपनी संगति से, इंसान अपनी संगति से पहचाना जाता है. संगत is very important. Your parents must have told you this, that you have to have a good company. If you have a good company, then you become a good person, and if you don't have a good company, then you do not become a good company. So company is very important. Sangat is very important. Okay? Yes. Now, yes. Can you give me some similar? Yes. Think of, there are a number of, many are coming in my mind. Lost time is never found again. Lost time is this. My grandfather would often say this thing. Like when I would be like wasting away my time in playing in a hole, then he would say, lost time is never found again. What does it mean? बीता हुआ समय कभी हाथ नहीं आता. Okay? बीता हुआ समय कभी हाथ नहीं आता. And this reminds me of a song again, an old song, गुजरा हुआ जमाना आता नहीं दोबारा, हाफिज खुदा तुम्हारा, हाफिज खुदा तुम्हारा. I hope you must have heard. तो गुजरा हुआ जमाना आता नहीं दोबारा. What does the proverb teach us? It teaches us to make the best use of time. Okay? Or how about misfortunes never come alone? Since we are doing the translation method, that's why I am talking about these idioms and proverbs and maxims, and I am asking you to translate. Okay? So yes, misfortunes never come alone.
मुसीबत कभी अकेले नहीं आती.
Very nice. मुसीबत कभी अकेले नहीं आती. Very nice. I was not able to think the exact one. मुसीबत कभी अकेले नहीं आती. Misfortunes never come alone. And yes, and truth is always bitter. Truth is always bitter. Yes.
सच कड़वा होता है.
सच कड़वा होता है. Very nice. Very nice. और सच्ची बात चुभती है. सच्ची बात चुभती है. सच कड़वा होता है. Truth is all हमेशा कड़वा होता है. हमेशा is also there. Always. Truth is always bitter. Okay. सच्ची बात चुभती है. And beauty needs no ornaments. Okay. A very common one. Common idiom. It was there in the text that we were reading yesterday. Beauty needs no ornaments. Beauty needs no ornaments. Beauty सुंदरता को ornaments आभूषण की आवश्यकता नहीं होती. सुंदरता को आभूषण की आवश्यकता नहीं होती. Yeah. One of my teachers, Dr. Amin Ashraf, would recite very nice couplets while teaching, and I don't know, it seems as though his soul has come into mine, and that's why I'm reminded of another couplet. अच्छी सूरत को संवरने की जरूरत क्या है? अच्छी सूरत को संवरने की जरूरत क्या है? सादगी में भी कयामत की अदा होती है. सादगी में भी कयामत की अदा होती है. Once he was teaching us Lord Byron's poem, She Walks in Beauty. She Walks in Beauty. Yes. You too must have read that poem, She Walks in Beauty. And the couplet that he recited, I still remember. And suppose my friends or classmates happen to watch this video, they might identify this experience. Yes. जो उठाई उसने रुख से नकाब, जो उठाई उसने रुख से नकाब, सुबह की पहली किरण शर्मा गई, सुबह की पहली किरण शर्मा गई. And another couplet he said, recited while teaching this poem. Yes. नाजुकी उसके लब की क्या कहिए. This is by Mir Taqi Mir. Okay, a very renowned poet. नाजुकी उसके लब की क्या कहिए, पंखुड़ी एक गुलाब की सी है. नाजुकी उसके लब की क्या कहिए, पंखुड़ी एक गुलाब की सी है. Okay. Now we had where there is a flower, there is a thorn. Now yeah, there's a very popular, very common phrase. Which one is it? Where there is a flower, there is a thorn. Similar one. Can you think of? Yes, please.
Where there is a will,
there is a will, there is a way. Where there is will, there is a way. Where there is will, there is a way. जहाँ चाह वहाँ रहा. जहाँ चाह वहाँ रहा. So you have the, if you tell your student, well, it means this. जहाँ चाह वहाँ रहा. So he is going to remember it. Yeah. जहाँ चाह वहाँ रहा. You know Allama Iqbal, his Sare Jahan Se Acha. He has written very nice poems, very nice ghazals, and which are very inspiring, which are very motivational. And here, when you're saying where there is will, there is a way. So I'm reminded of his couplet. This is very popular one. You must have heard it. खुदी को कल बुलंद इतना कि हर तकदीर से पहले. खुदी को कल बुलंद इतना कि हर तकदीर से पहले. खुदा बंदे से खुद पूछे बता तेरी रजा क्या है. खुदा बंदे से खुद पूछे बता तेरी रजा क्या है. It means make your will so strong, okay, so strong that even God might ask you for your consent before making any decisions about your life. Before making any decisions about your life. Okay. Now, as you sow, so shall you reap. This is very common one. This you must yes, tell me the Hindi version of it. As you sow, this is SOW, sow, as you sow, so shall you reap. You had a theme writing also last year on this topic, on this line. As you sow, so shall you reap.
जैसा बोओगे वैसा काटोगे.
जैसा बोओगे वैसा काटोगे. Very good. जैसा बोओगे वैसा काटोगे. Yes. And how about a friend in need is a friend indeed. A very common one which we use almost every day. A friend in need. A friend in need. A friend in need
is a friend indeed.
Is a friend indeed. You know in English, but do you know also in Hindi? With वही जो मुसीबत में काम आए. With वही जो परेशानी में काम आए. दोस्त कौन है? दोस्त वही अच्छा है जो कि हमारी परेशानी में, हमारी तकलीफ में साथ दे. So a friend in need is a friend indeed. However, you don't have friends like that. We do not find such nice friends, you know. They are very scarce. There's a serious dearth of good friends in fact. And I hope you have nice friends and you become nice friends and continue to be nice. You know, it's a blessing of God if you have a nice friend. Otherwise, you know, I would say friends, you know, they're almost like मौसम in fact. Okay, मिल भी जाते हैं तो कतरा के निकल जाते हैं. मिल भी जाते हैं तो कतरा के निकल जाते हैं. हाय मौसम की तरह दोस्त बदल जाते हैं. So this is how friends are, you know. They are just, you know, they change, as do the seasons change. So it is observed that when we know the mother tongue correspondent of the English phrase, proverb or idiom, then we learn and retain the foreign language versions quite easily. Okay? You know, the purpose here behind giving the examples of idioms, proverbs and maxims is that the English language can be very well or can be easily learned and taught even through translation. Like, you know, I was doing translation and, you know, it was a joyful experience. Was it not? If you are making it a joyful experience, a lively experience, say an interesting experience, then students are going to enjoy it. So even if you are teaching through translation method, do not teach it in a dull manner. Teach it in an interesting manner. Okay? Make it interesting. Make it joyful. Make it a fun. Involve your students. I'm telling you all this again because you are all going to be would-be teachers. You know, you are all would-be teachers. So this is how. Even if you happen to teach translation method, make it interesting by your imagination. Okay? Share your experiences with them. Share the way I'm sharing. You know, I was reminded of my teacher because, you know, some teachers, they influence us lifelong. We do not forget them. And the best teachers are those teachers which we remember lifelong, which we do not forget. And they are the ones, you know, like who taught us beyond the text. Because they were not like spoon feeding us. Once you are there in college, once you are there in the university, you don't need spoon feeding. And try to understand it. And do not expect us to spoon feed you. Please. Okay? Let us teach you beyond text. Our intention, our purpose is to widen your horizon. To share our experiences with you. To make you a better teacher. Because, you know, I remember, I'm telling you from my own experience, I remember those teachers who were teaching beyond the text. If suppose a teacher, you know, happens to teach you just like a solitary reaper, line by line, is just paraphrasing you, then, you know, you do not remember him. You do not find it a joyful experience. So make it a joyful experience by using your imagination, by sharing your experiences. So, you know, the experiences of our teachers, they pass on from